Um, Actually, I'm happy for this presentation before, because I got this invitation to come not long ago, and I have done all of this kind of graphs and things and looking at this, but because they are a year old and I don't want to update, and there are things that I changed, but I said, okay, I will speak about something a bit beyond that, and therefore it goes brilliant, because you set the scene. So thank you very much. And it was brilliant. It was better than I would have done it. So I have nothing to say for that. But I want to go a bit deeper now on certain aspects on innovation. A bit like, why are we getting stuck? Why are we getting stuck when we have all of this money? And I'm still a little bit worried on the pension funds, even when they get guarantees, because their instinct is a bit problematic. So you have to somehow be very convincing. So the other thing is the other risk, that is, if we are going, I mean, I'm looking at investment and helping also some people that are in companies that are bigger even, they want to do some things, and I help them not because I'm like a lobbyist or advisor or I get paid for that, is that I'm very interested to find out how they get invested, where they go. So I sometimes accompanying them. I have been accompanying them to some meetings with banks and so on, or with the EIB or whatever. And then I go and I say, well, there are these people that have this project, and I sit there because as a researcher, I actually learn by just sitting there. So my fee is just to be there, which is a very interesting. But I find that one of the first things that I realized is when you have even a public investment bank, and when you have public funding, also this is first of all very problematic, is that unless we change the culture, the public generally is not particularly entrepreneurial. The mindset is not the right one. So I think that, for example, the EIB, according to me, has to change mindset, because the European Investment Bank is an investment bank in the sense of building hard structures, like big structures. For them to transform into a kind of venture institution, still we need a little bit more. So they're trying, but it's not in the DNA, let's put it like this. It's a bank that has a capital of the member states of 256 billion euro. Now with the Brexit it will be 230, whatever. But they have this capital which is there, so they have a leverage of 1 to 2 in the sense that their whole portfolio of 500 billion, the biggest in the world, but it's 1 to 2 for a bank. This is like paradise, but because the capital being public, you're not supposed to touch it. So therefore, it's not that they give guarantees, guaranteeing it, not in the way, let's say, a guarantee works. So for them, the firepower could be much bigger, but it goes into territories the public sector and ministries of finance of member states would never want to go. So let's be clear that this is a problem here. It's not the lack of money, it's the lack of, will. Now, I was a bit worried the other day because I'm doing energy policy too, and I really start getting very annoyed, to be honest, about the European Union difference between speeches and action. And I'm going to go into the energy because that's what I'm looking for, and because we have this great European product called Greta Thunberg, but it's not actually an innovation on energy production, it's actually innovation of speeches. I'm just doing it as a point, that I'm just saying we are very good at complaining and protesting, but we are trailing behind in several aspects. First of all, when you look at the priority, energy is supposed to be Europe's priority area of being in the technological point and being the most influential partner. We want to be, as Europe, influential on an international level. If we look at investment and innovation in the area and in companies, they beat us in China, in the US, and we are maybe going to trail behind other ones because we lack the oomph. Okay, so I saw the figures and I said it's incredible because we seem to be working in a world where we are the great people saying what to do, but we are actually not the great people actually leading the area in the technology. And I don't like that. So we have lost leadership, but in not only in this area. So the energy statistics globally are really problematic for me, and given that we want to lead in energy, is that we are here speaking, we are speaking about Denmark. Denmark, all the energy is from wind power. Well, it's offshore wind power. The country is very small. It's actually only electricity power, and their emissions and use of fossil fuels is the same as 20 years ago. The only thing they did is to block the increase. So let's not fool ourselves. Globally, for example, we have the increase in the use of energy produced by coal. The increase is that only of coal is bigger than all of the energy increase that has happened in renewables and nuclear together. Then you have more oil, more gas. So we are going behind. We are not going forward. We are going behind. And we are making speeches and going forward. So we have to be very, very bold. And we are not being so bold. So we have a problem in Europe because we do also have problems that are really, as I say, cultural, national, so on. And we need to be aware of this. And sometimes the same people that are asking for new solutions are exactly the same ones that block new solutions. Germany, that leads in some of the renewable energy, at the same time as the one that has a lot of the windmills blocked because of legal cases against having the windmill next to your home. So they have a lot of them switched off. And the same people are saying they want renewables. So we have a problem with this. So how the other problems that I see is simply that we do have a fragmented capital market. So we need a capital markets union effectively to expand the capital for access for companies and so on. So I hope that this will be coming. It's supposed to come this year. We also have an issue that we have a mentality. If someone starts a company here, startups and so on, the mentality is that if you fail, you're a loser. In the US, usually you will be bought and someone else will take what you know and they will expand it to something else. We do have a bit of this mentality. We do have tax and regulatory frameworks that are not very friendly, and they are fragmented. You don't have a European market when you're a company. You have still 28 markets because even if there are no borders, there are different rules. You have different rules on many, many things. So you don't have the European market directly so easily. If you want to have offices in different places, you have different aspects. So we have a problem. It is not true, however, that the US has everything harmonized. In fact, there are different taxes in every state. And in Canada, you cannot provide services across borders, some of the services. So it's funny that we are actually thinking that they have solved it, but it's not totally true. The other thing that we saw this picture, that in terms of big players, if we look at the really, really big companies, the European Union, we are still speaking about Skype already, although it left. And in the meantime, a lot of new companies appeared in China and the US, a lot more than in Europe. And then some people tell me, oh yeah, but it is not, we don't want big companies. We want more competition. We want smaller and medium enterprises. We don't want big companies. This is the European idea that small is more beautiful. It's fine as long as you give me a model where we are actually successful in that, because even in that we are not doing very well. So it is that we still don't manage to, I think the European Union has not managed even to define its own way to approach it. We still are rather analyzing while we are failing rather than adding solutions to it. And we really need to get there. Then there was the question about the sustainability principles of investment. My question about the sustainability principles of investment is who is defining what is sustainable and not. I would tell you one thing. The European Union practically decided since years ago, and because there was Fukushima and there was something else, that we are not going to do any more nuclear research. Okay, because it's bad. It's bad, it's radioactive, it's bad. So what happened? The US, by the way, the government also didn't finance it. So private funding, in particular the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation, they decided that it's very hard or nearly impossible, given the figures and the situation we are today, that there is a way to go with wind and water and so on when gas, oil and everything is increasing. So they decided to look, can we not create nuclear reactors that are radioactive free, and when they block, they don't release nuclear energy? Because they say that the nuclear reactors we have today are technology from the 60s still. All of this reactors are working with analog watches. So they started designing it, and they designed now one that uses the spent fuel of the old power stations to power the new ones, and would have energy for 500 years. And the funny thing is that if something happens, it gets flooded, the world goes down, there is an earthquake, it just stops, and there is no radioactivity. It just stops. And it actually takes away the radioactivity from the spent one. Is this not a good idea? Well, the problem is that we banned research here. We could have done it here. We don't. So nuclear research, Europe was number 1 20 years ago. Now we're behind China, behind Russia, and behind the US. Was this a good idea? Because we went with emotions. Biotech, I can say the same. So we need to start thinking, okay, we want things that are sustainable, but it doesn't mean that things we don't like, you cannot research. And this is my final criticism. Now you can throw potatoes if you want, or tomatoes or something, but I'm getting a bit frustrated, because when I look at the energy figures in the world, and we are supposed to be the leading figure, I actually think that we are still speaking too much and not doing enough. And finance is one problem, but I think that what they call in trade is like Brexit. The British politicians and everybody, they are speaking about tariffs. Forget the bloody 10% tariffs. The worst barrier in the world is called non-tariff barriers. And the same is here. It's not that there is no money. It's that you actually have to have the guts to use it. And let's see. But I'm very happy about the InvestEU initiative and so on. I just hope that a bit of mentality changes behind. Thank you.